Hello and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin with the Modern Observer Group. And with us, as always, is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how you doing this week?
I'm doing great. How about you, Eric?
Doing fantastic. We are now hitting May. We are one third through the year. So it's a good time to start looking forward and going, all right, what else are we going to accomplish this year? So what have you got that you're working on?
Vacation.
Vacation is good.
Yes, my wife and I have our 45th anniversary coming up this year. So in 2 weeks, we're heading to California for a couple weeks. But now, rest of the year, looking to do more talks and so on and so forth, and just spread the positivity around. So, but it's really cool that we're here already. So, but we have a really nice, fun guest who's really a new acquaintance of mine, even though he's been around the chamber world and the West Hartford Chamber for a long, long time. But he joined our board of directors in West Hartford about a year ago, and he has got quite an extensive background in commercial printing and a lot of other things. He's very involved in ecology. He actually has a website that he works in Rhode Island and so on. And we got to talk a lot a couple of months ago when we were in West Hartford for our holiday stroll at Christmas time when the wind chill degrees was about 10 below. And we were talking about nice places where Bob lives, like Rhode Island. So Bob, welcome to Bob Carr, and tell us all about your career and where we are now. And then we'll just have a nice chat. Bob, take it away.
Sure. No, thanks again for you guys. Thank you very much for having me here. I really appreciate it. I listen to your podcasts and I love the positivity and what you guys do with just the different topics that you cover. So we'll start, the newest stuff first. I'm the managing partner at we-hot.com. So we-hot.com with the hyphen in there to separate it out, because in West Hartford there's we-ha. We put the little hyphen in to separate ourselves up from just the we-ha itself. And we're a hyper-local news website. Been in business about, I think it's been 9 years. We cover only West Hartford. Oddly enough, there's only 65,000 folks who live in West Hartford. We have 150 to 200,000 unique visitors every month to the website, and we have 300 to 350,000 total readers on the website in a given month. So our reach is beyond West Hartford. I kind of think of West Hartford, as what Hartford used to be, kind of the downtown of the area. It's a lovely town, great people, and we love covering it. So that's been about the last 9 years. Prior to that, and during some of that time, I've been a commercial print salesman for close to 40 years, and that was an interesting career that I loved. That it had. You worked with the folks who were designing and creating the product that you're printing, and it was just a blast to be part of that, to be part of the creative process. So that was kind of the beginning of it. Things changed about 10 years ago, 12 years ago on that, and I stayed in it till I retired in December of 2021. So that's kind of my quick overview of my background.
Nice. So, as a commercial printer, you obviously saw major changes in that industry. And of course, over time, you had to adapt. Tell us a little bit about what you saw changing, how you've adapted.
So, very early on, the process was what would you call a mechanical or an analog process. So, for folks who don't know a lot about printing, I'll try to break it down to terms that are less wonky. So we used mechanicals, which are analog. We took either transparencies, which are basically slides, and or reflective, which is basically a photograph, and took that information, converted it into dots, converted those dots into film, specifically film that was made for the printing process, to plates, and then you ran it onto paper. So I tried to make that as simple as possible. As time went on, I got to be very much involved with the changes in the industry. Probably around 1997, 98, more digital came in, and I loved the idea of the changes that were happening in the industry, because an offset press, back it up a little bit, were around since the early 1900s, weren't used a lot. There were a lot of letterpress out there, but the offset press was really invented in, I think, the late 1800s, early 1900s. So the technology, if you were a pressman in 1930 and walked into a print shop today, the press would work the same way. How the material got to the press, how the plate got on the press, how the paper maybe gets to the press would be slightly different, but the actual cylinders, you would know what it was. So the change in the late 1990s to digital formatting, which really was a game changer for the industry. It was a negative impact for the offset side, but it was gave the customer an opportunity to not have to buy so much print material. They could change it more quickly and more cost effectively. So for me, I'll go back on there a second. I'll take a drink of water here. Sorry. What I did was I kind of locked into a few things. Direct mail, because even if you don't need a brochure, mailing a piece of material to someone's home gets it onto their kitchen table. It's more effective than, say, email. It's more effective than digital advertising. It's just more expensive. And that's where the downside is. The postal service, the cost of postage is expensive, but the actual fact of mail, it works really, really well. And that's where I kind of I stayed successful, I guess is the right word, over the decades by honing in on the things that were the changes in the industry that were positive, as opposed to saying, oh, lamenting the fact that I'm not doing books anymore. I'm not doing big brochures anymore or annual reports anymore. They were gone, and they're never coming back. But there are things that were coming back, and there was mail, variable data prints, that kind of stuff, which was just a new age.
Yeah, I remember back in the 90s, I was working in advertising. And when I started as a creative director at the ad agency, we were still putting everything together by hand. So we had to put together the letters, paste everything down on board, put it on the stat camera, take the film from the stat camera, send that over to the publications. I think it was only about 3 or 4 years later, over the course of my career there, we had already switched over to everything was being created digitally. We didn't print anything. We were transmitting it electronically right to the publications. Gave us more time to do the ads, but it was an amazing transition, switching over from doing everything from paste up to doing it all digitally.
Absolutely. There was a lot of shakeup in the industry, specifically for folks who were the pre-press people. They were called strippers. They worked with the film. Camera people who created the halftones, took the images and split them down into dots. Just all that went away. But the positive thing I feel bad for those folks who that happened to. Some of them transitioned and they learned about digital and they went and they became pre-press operators. But one of the things that it did was, on the offset side, it really leveled the playing field so that a small printer could compete with a large printer because the quality of the work would be the same, very much the same, because the presses that was the back before digital, when you were still doing things mechanically in an analog format, the quality of the people that you had really determined the quality of the output on the press. But once you got past that, once it became Apple created the marketplace for digital and really kind of blew it as everybody else out of the water. Once you had those pre-presses that were digital, you then had a much smoother work process and you had a much more consistent printing process. And frankly, printed materials today are by far much better across the board than they were 30, 35 years ago. It's just not the same. The quality of the work today is phenomenal, and it's all based on digital.
Oh, sure. And the change to digital opened up the industry so much, because if you were a publisher, you had to guarantee you were going to sell thousands upon thousands of copies just to be able to afford the print run. But in the 90s, as things switched to digital, you got smaller publishers coming out that they could afford to do more experiments, to do different topics that maybe would only appeal to a specific niche that previously was not affordable or cost effective, but now could actually be done well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I see a lot of small books being printed, even inside industry. If you're in
Yep.
I did a work for a law, Connecticut bar actually, and they produced a number of small books that they wouldn't have been able to produce, because the audience was, as you said, limited. Right, you have a limited number of people who need to read this material or would be interested in the material, and it was very interesting to see that transition on so many levels, where you weren't locked into buying 100,000 of something because of the cost per piece. You could just produce 1,000 with the digital equipment that's out there, and even on the offset presses, the cost of getting that first piece off became a lot less expensive with the advent of a digital workflow. Yeah, it's kind of so. For myself personally, I never really lamented the loss of what had gone by. I wasn't one of those guys who worked on the pre-press area who was a stripper or a camera person. So it wasn't for me, it was what was off the end of the press, what came out of the end of the equipment. And then delivering something new and unique to the customer who hadn't realized they could go that route before.
Yeah, and obviously, how you deal with customers has changed over the years too, because when you first started, obviously there was no internet and it was all face to face and phone calls, starting with rotaries and then all that other kind of thing. And along with digital came the internet. So obviously the marketplace for all print has expanded from local to worldwide, if that's what you want to do. And obviously it's been an amazing upsurge of everything there. But obviously, with a small company like you have, but with the dynamic town that we have in the town of West Hartford, I would imagine, and I'm sure that your viewership and people hitting your site went way, way up as the popularity of West Hartford did, from people moving out of physical locations like New York City and so on and so forth to telecommuting, and with West Hartford being a destination really worldwide, especially in the US, for people wanting to relocate here. So tell us about what the last couple of years have meant for you.
Oh yeah, so when we started WeHa on a kind of a string budget, and it took a while to gather some steam. So to your point, as we were better known, became better known, we kind of grew with the public relations aspects of the town, where you have the best school systems and you have the all these different excuse me, just the availability of being able to walk through that downtown and walk in and walk the streets and enjoy the restaurants, enjoy the arts that are available there. Over the last 3 years, actually, COVID was a positive for us. It really created a space where folks knew they could come to our site, get really solid information, get it without any, political leanings one way or the other, just provide the information to the population of West Hartford and allow the folks who live there to make the decisions for themselves. It became a very good site for folks to come to and understand what was happening in the town from the government standpoint, from the openings and closings standpoint. Was excellent. To what you were saying earlier, once that happened, again, we have 300,000 folks who come to the site. There's only 65,000 people in West Hartford, and that includes babies. That includes children. That includes, not everybody has a phone, right? Not everybody has access to the internet. So I believe that West Hartford is now like it is a city that the suburbs sit around, where we one time it was Hartford, but the fact is the move out of Hartford to the suburbs changed the dynamic of Hartford, but it definitely changed the dynamic of West Hartford. And now you have folks living in the valley outside of West Hartford, and they see us as like they're downtown, right? They're people from Avon, Simsbury, Farmington, Newington has a nice downtown, but coming into West Hartford for meals, for shopping, for entertainment, it's all there. And that change did happen about 3 years ago.
So how did you get involved with weha.com?
That's a sales story. So WeHa came out of the change from Patch, AOL Patch. AOL Patch was a national organization, and they had a great idea to build out these hyper-local news sites to kind of fill in the space that newspapers, weeklies, and dailies kind of had lost. So they put all this money in and built out all this infrastructure. And because they were corporate, they weren't making enough money. I think they were making money, just not enough money. They pulled the plug on almost everything, kept the name patch because they put a lot of information, money into that, but really pulled everybody else out. So Ronnie Newton, our editor, and Kosik Makati, our sales manager, and my partner, both partners, they walked over to Tom Hickey at WH Media at the time, now 2020 Media. He has a magazine, and just chatted with him about starting this day, like a regular news site, specifically for daily coverage of West Hartford, running a newsletter 3 days a week. I happened to be sitting there, and I owned previous businesses. I owned a printing company. I had another company that actually failed. And now you guys talked about failure before and how you deal with failure. That failed spectacularly. And then another company came out of that was successful, but had a limited run. And I just looked at them and said, well, who's going to handle like the management of the everyday to day? I'm the only one really in that room who didn't have another job. I had a print sales guy, but I had free time during my day that I could give to this. I ran my parents' company's books. My mom taught me how to do books on green ledger sheets back in the early 80s. I'm very familiar with finances in our company, the one I owned that failed and the one that succeeded. So I said, I'll handle the finances and I'll throw a few dollars in and I'll be your fourth partner. So it's kind of how it all happened. I just happened to be in the room and just said, I'll do this. And if you guys are interested, I'll be a partner.
Nice. So you just saw the opportunity as it unfolded in front of you.
Absolutely. That's exactly how I ended up there.
So other than, for those of our listeners who are not in the West Hartford area, not familiar with WEHA, other than hyper local, what is the focus of WEHA? What do you cover?
All right. So one of my I'm in a mastermind group, what you guys would call it, a publishing group, and one of the folks there defined it as our business, our business is journalism, but how do you put it? Our mission is journalism, but our business is advertising. So on the journalism side, we cover Ronnie was up till 3 o'clock in the morning. I think it was last Thursday night to publish a story about the town budget. So we cover the town budget. We cover the schools. We cover the event, the town council. That's frankly, nobody reads that stuff, which is unfortunate because so much effort is put into writing good stories about the budget, about the school systems, about the decisions that are being made at the town level, that we are putting that information out there, and it is not our most read material. What gets read and what we cover, West Hartford is a great small city. And I think we reflect the quality of the town itself. That what we write about are the positive things that happen in the town, and make sure that those things are well known. Bad things do happen in West Hartford, but we just don't. We'll write about it, we'll cover it, but we're not making that a breaking news story unless it really truly needs to be a breaking news story. We don't get a lot of breaking news. We're not trying to sell bad stuff. We will cover it. We will make sure you know about it. But at the end of the day, there's much more good that's happening across the country, not just in West Hartford, in small towns and in small cities that people should know about. And that's what we cover.
Yeah, you do a wonderful job covering, the businesses in town, high schools, things that are going on. And there's a really, it's a great thing to read every day. I mean, you have your little headlines as far as different things going on, and most of them are really, really good. Obviously, if there's something going on that's happened, you got to keep that a little bit in coverage, and weather issues and street closings and all that other kind of thing. I mean, you're a great resource there as far as what's going on in town and what to look out for. But on the other side of things, if you just want to read about all the great things that are going on in town, it's right there, and it's in the headlines every day.
I believe truly that we reflect the quality of the community, the things that are in the community that are, exceptional. It's an exceptional community. And because of the critical mass of the number of people who live there, you get a lot more value, I think, as a person who owns or lives or works in West Hartford than you would in a smaller town out in the middle of Litchfield County, where I used to live. I think there's a great value to the town itself, and it lends itself to a whole bunch of stories, whether it's business, whether it's what's happening on a local street, or if you have a sewer line backup. We're gonna let you know that road is closed or there's problems on that street. We're gonna cover it, but we're not gonna dwell on that particular problem for 3 or 4 days because we're getting more clicks. We just don't do it. We're really more about the quality of the overall how the town is perceived.
Now, obviously, these hyperlocal websites have taken over where very small dailies and weekly newspapers used to be. Where do you see this going, though? Have you guys been exploring different technologies, distributing your news through social media or SMS texts, or what's next for it?
That's a good question. Frankly, what's working for us is our newsletter, which goes out 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday via email. We have a huge following on our Facebook page. We discussed sending things out on text, but a text is almost for us would be intrusive, because we're taking, you're not coming to us, we're coming to you, right? We're not, we're and that's going to go back to breaking news. We're not throwing out a lot of breaking news because we're not looking for clickbait. We want to give you something to come to us and read our stories. But there are other news organizations, and it's fine. They're going to send out a lot more email. They're going to send out more texts. If I'm interested in a particular baseball, football, basketball, hockey team, I'm a New York Rangers fan. So if the text came through to me and tells me the Rangers are playing tonight at 8, that's going to be of an interest to me. I get a lot of UConn texts, but we're not going to do it for news or for what we're producing. The industry itself, there's a lot of folks like us, people who work for either Patch or work for the local newspaper, and either they were let go or the paper closed or it got bought out, which is unfortunate. Many of these newspapers are being bought out by either larger chains that are just kind of, as we've seen with the Hartford Courant, kind of being pulled apart. And then somebody comes in who's a private equity firm and kind of just keeps the name and doesn't provide you with the type of coverage that they previously had done. The reporters leave, and good reporters going to find a place to put their news, their information, and they're building out these sites. So there's a lot of them across the country, and it's a growth industry in the sense that more and more people are turning to these hyperlocal sites that are nonpartisan, that give them the news that they can read and go on with their day. And I think that we're finding is, so we've been part of the Lion, local independent online news organization, for almost as long as we've been around. And you see that transition to these solid newsrooms that people are building out and creating real news in their communities.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, you've seen changes going on. I mean, obviously, you started out in print, you moved online. What do you think about what's going on now with the changes in these industries where you have, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about AI lately with Chat GPT. There's been a lot of differences. As a printer, you were talking about direct mail. The US Postal Service is doing a lot more with Every Door Direct and introducing their own print products. What do you think of how all of these things are moving forward?
I have actually a whole Excel file listing all the AI products that I can run across out there to make sure I stay on top of them a little bit anyway. So AI for us, for news organizations, we have this conversation almost every Monday. We talk about it. It is a positive. It creates an opportunity to spend your time on more important news or more important products. So if we could take this conversation right now, and I think I can't remember which one it is, but on one of the AI programs that are out there, we'll take this conversation. Well, you can tag each of our names, and it will give you a complete readout of this entire conversation, and you can just go ahead and go right through it. There's an editing program, same thing. You go right through it. If I say a lot, or if I lose my place, you can you'll take that out and eliminate it from the podcast. And it helps folks like yourself manage your product and your service. Now, can it be used for evil? Absolutely. It can be used for evil. As far as the print side and the direct mail stuff, the post office has to come up with a way. This is personal opinion. We didn't create the U.S. Postal Service to be for profit. Actually, it was created. This is not personal. This is actual fact. It was created to deliver the news inexpensively from the cities, Philadelphia, New York, wherever, back when Ben Franklin started it, out to the hinterlands. So the lowest cost mail was always going to be your news. It also, the Postal Service funded through delivery of mail. This is a little history lesson. I'm sorry for this, but the U.S. train system, the U.S. railroad system, that was a huge cost to move mail. They paid the freight literally to get those trains moving. Same thing with the airline, with the air service, the U.S. airmail. The fact is they've been maligned for political reasons, and without people really understanding the positive history that they've had and the positive effects that the U.S. Postal Service has had. So for them to go out and do their own thing, more power to them. Right? Because they've created the society that we live in using the mail, and it's something that they should be applauded for.
Right. Well, we are just about at the end of our time. So if somebody wants to find out about news in West Hartford, where can they find WeHa?
Go to we-ha.com. It's very simple. we-ha.com. Read us, drop us a note, and support our advertisers. They support us.
Thanks for being here, Bob. Chip, what do you think is the big takeaway from this week?
I love listening to the history lesson. Obviously, I grew up through all this. I'm sure Bob and I remember the 4-cent stamps for mail way back in the 60s. But it's just wonderful to have a local publication like yours, and I'm sure that they're all over the country, that the main purpose is to provide the good news and the different things that are going on in town. Again, nonpartisan, and just a place to go for that. So kudos for that. It's just wonderful to have you on, and I wish you all the best moving ahead, and I'm sure that I'm going to hear a whole lot more from different people here. Hopefully this podcast goes outside of here a lot, and people will check that out and see what things are all about here back in Eric's and Chip's neighborhood.
Yeah, I think for me, the big takeaway is I love your positivity. I mean, especially what you were talking about with the post office and AI. Tools are tools, and they're always going to change. They can always be used for either good or bad. And you can focus on the positivity. It's like, yes, you have to cover when a sewer main breaks, but also you cover all the positive things that go on in the community. And I don't think there's enough focus on that. People have to realize there's good wherever you look. You just have to be open to it. So I love that there's a site in West Hartford that focuses on that. You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch us every episode at xvadio.com/podcasts, the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. We'll see you then.